Yeah, we got a little ahead of myself here. Didn't shoot this whenever I got finished with it, but there's the back bumper with the lights and license plate and everything. It's currently upside down onto the frame rails. If you look down through here now, I don't know if you can see, but it has a little wiggle, which is fine because the center between that back brace right there and this bumper, it's about an inch narrower. So once we get them other pieces in, the cross members here are some old pallet racking that I had around back. It's 1/8 inch thick. That's more than enough for cross braces in this section. But went ahead and capped the ends of the bumper here and drilled a 3/4 inch hole for the side marker lights. And then here on the inside of where the license plate's gonna go, I put a little piece of angle iron on both sides, and it has a 3/4 hole for a license plate light. But once we get the rest of this here, I'm gonna put 3 more of these big cross members in here to kind of give this some lateral support. And then I'm gonna do some 2x2 by 1/8 angle iron just for my floorboards from that cross member there back. That's just because that's the porch toy hauler area, just to give the 2x6s a little more support. And then from that cross member forward will be underneath of the tiny house part, so it won't really need any more bracing across there, just because it's going to have 2x4 floor joists fastened to that running side to side. So let me finish getting this welded up, and then let's see, I've got it marked here. So between this little mark right here and that little mark there is where the axles will be at. That gives me about 6.5 foot of overhang past the back of the axle, which normally would be quite a bit, but this whole thing, once I get the camper frame on the front, will be 40 feet long. So having 6 feet out of past the axles won't be that big of a deal. So let me get the rest of this done, and then I'll get back with you. All right, so we're finished for this weekend. I've got all the cross members welded in. They're every 4.5 feet. That's just what worked out best. For what I have to work with here, the measurements, I am going to put a piece of 2x2 angle between every one of them cross members for the 2x6s to fasten down to and give it a little bit more support. I ran out of wire, and I ran out of argon for my TIG, so I had to stop here for now anyway. But I got the little cleats welded on here, so whenever you flip this over, so the ramps have something to set on, and then just took a piece of angle cutting 2 inches long and used them for supports underneath of that. But I got that all welded in except for this one here. I got it all tacked, so I'll have to go get some more wire and 75/25. I'm about out of that, and I'll just go ahead and get a tank argon for my TIG as well. But got them all welded in. I got the piece in the back here to support the ends of the 2x6s. So tomorrow morning, everybody gets in here, we'll load this up with my car trailer and take it outside, and it'll sit there till next weekend. Then we'll probably drag it in, do our notch on the end of this. My plan is, since I'm putting C-channel to I-beam, I'm going to go back 5.5 inches, which is where the joint will end up being, and then take that to a point. And then on the I-beam frame, I'm going to do the same thing, except the point will be this way, so it'll overlap. So it'll be essentially the same as doing a butt joint and then putting a plate on each side. Then there'll be a piece of 2x3 that'll end up going a foot on each side of that joint on the bottom side to give it a little bit more support. And then from where the axles stop to the front of this frame on the bottom side, there'll be 3-inch standoffs every 12 inches, and then a piece of 2-inch by 1/4-inch flat stock that will be welded to the 3-inch risers where the axles are at, and that'll run all the whole length of this underneath to kind of give it a little bit more structure. See, now it's going to be 40 feet long. I'm trying to do everything I can to reinforce it, but that's where we're going to stop at for this weekend. By putting them cross members in there, it did take that little bit of a bow that was in this frame rails, seeing how they was all cut the same length, and before I welded them in, we did take the time to level it and then square it corner to corner. So that way, you know, giving it every chance I can to get it square. So, all right, that's going to be it for this weekend. All right, it's another Saturday in here on this frame stretch tiny house project. So we've got the extension in again. I want to get it's still upside down. I want to get the axle perches and the risers put on here. I'm debating now, after talking to a couple of my welder friends, engineer brother-in-law, you know, how I was going to do it. He said that would work, but if I have the steel, why not go ahead and run the 2x3, the full 20-foot length? That way it scabs it all the way across, and it would probably be a lot easier to line all this up and get it clamped together. So I've got 3 20-foot sticks over here, so that's what I'm going to do. So after this is the frame in here. So originally I was going to leave all this. I was actually going to just scab that onto the side and weld it all in. But once we got to stripping it down, we found out that the one of the slide out tubes, much like this one here, ran right where the seam was going to be right here. So since they cut all that out, a lot bigger than the tube, and then they scabbed a plate on the outside of it, decided to change my plans a little bit, and we're going to cut it off right here. And then this is going to be the end of my patch. So we're going to take this down to a point, get rid of all these old shackles and everything, and then we're going to do the same with this piece here. So essentially the two are going to overlap, and instead of doing a butt weld with a diamond plate on each side for strength, we're going to make this frame kind of like an arrow, the other one like an arrow, and essentially it'll be the same amount of surface area. And then with the 2x3 tubing running right about there, so it'd be about 7 feet underneath this frame. That'll give it more than enough strength for what we're going to be hauling. As of right now, if my math is right, this should be right at the max of about 10,000 pounds whenever we're finished, with a 4-seater side-by-side on it. So we got 5,200 pound axles, so we should be good. But by putting the 20-foot section up in front of it, if I need to, I can either upgrade these axles from 52s to 7,000 pound axles, which would give me a 14,000 load, or I can just add another 5,000 pound axle in front of that and make it a triple. So we'll get it all built, we'll weigh it out, and we'll see. I'm going to hang on to this rear section of frame after we get it cut off of there, just because I can use that for the standoffs for the walls after I get the axles and everything in place. Since I already have it, why not use it? So let's get this thing cut up and then we'll get back. All right, so we got the back of the frame cut off here. Try not to shine into the light. I just took a plasma cutter, went about 3 inches behind where I'm going to make my final cut with the bandsaw, and cut it off with a plasma cutter. And then kind of helped out that it, after cutting it off and removing the axles, it tipped up, so now I don't have to lay on my back to grind. I can get all them old shackles off there. Got the axles sitting here in the way, but it'll be all right. I can move them around. One thing I did notice as I'm laying out these rails and getting all the shackles put back in here for the new section of frame, measuring the old section, the old frame rails, the shackles on the first axle from center to center is an 1/8 inch wider than the next section. And on the other side, it's a 1/16 of an inch narrower than the back section. So I would say this thing was probably eating tires pretty good. I went ahead and measured all the springs and make sure, you know, they wasn't compensating for something, but yeah, they're nowhere near straight. But when they go back together, they will be. I've got these 2 pieces of 2x3. I'm making all my measurements from the back. Don't care what the other end looks like as far as them being even, because you know, that they'll be separated. But I'm gonna make all my measurements from here to the back bumper to get it square underneath of the trailer, and then the same whenever I get ready to do my notch over here. All the measurements are going to come from the back bumper here, because I know this is square whenever we welded it all together. And then on the frame here, this front main cross member where the I-beam rails are welded to, that's the measurement. I'm going from there back, and then I'll cut it off up here based on that. So once I get it all down here on the floor and get it together, we will square it just to make sure it's better than it was whenever we started cutting it apart. So it should pull a lot better, even though it's going to be, you know, 14 feet longer.